Okay. Part 5. I had to think for a second which part it was. A change of plans. And so the autumn coming-of-age ceremony ended without incident. I had expected that some noble or other would come to check on the Bible, but it seemed that Egmont had been in charge of overseeing matters in the temple. A letter from his home family arrived asking whether I had been able to open and use the Bible during the coming-of-age ceremony. Ferdinand, what should we do with this, I asked. Pen a response in Egmont's name, stating that you simply brought the Bible to the ceremony and did not attempt to open it. I look forward to seeing how many nobles fall for it this winter, Ferdinand said, his lip curving into a grin. Hartman uttered an agreement, saying that they needed to eliminate all the nobles who posed a threat to me in one fell swoop. That may be so, but I think Hartman is the most dangerous of them all. Possibly. I had Monica write a response as if she were Egmont's attendant. It was a magic letter, so when I placed it inside its envelope, after checking the text, it turned into an ivory bird and flew away. I need to go back to the castle and prepare for winter socializing as soon as the winter baptisms are complete, I said, but when I think about the dangers of nobles sneaking in again, I fear for the temple. Even after we were gone, nobles from the south were going to be passing through the temple on their way to the castle. There was a chance that one of them would attempt something again, so I decided to have Daniel stay back in the temple until the last possible moment. Ferdinand and I had been called to a meeting of the Archducal family, so we needed to leave for the castle as soon as the winter baptisms were over. This meeting would center around us telling the higher-ups of the Knights' Order that what we had learned from Viscount Daldorf and finalizing our plans for the winter purge. It was being held in secret, so we were limited to one retainer of each field, specifically those with the tightest lips. In my case, I was bringing Hartmut, Riarda, and Cornelius. Are you sure about Hartmut, considering... I would think that he would be the type to... If you were to tell him your secret of you being from another world, or even as a commoner, he seems like he would be the type to extol your virtues even more, saying that the Saint of Ehrenfest was amazing, even more so from rising up the ranks of being from a commoner to a noble. Yeah, best not to do that. Sylvester began explaining his plans for the winter purge and which nobles he intended to detain. Wilfrid, Charlotte, and Melkor listened in complete shock, having not been privy to the purge before this point. I could see the retainers tense up as well. Sylvester went on to note that a far greater number of members of the former Veronica faction had given their names than expected. Father, Wilfrid said with a tense expression, what do you plan to do with the nobles who no longer have names to give? Many former Veronica faction members had thus far refused to change sides, one could easily deduce that there were more names sworn among them than an Ehrenfest person would ever have guessed. I intend to spare those who gave their names to Veronica, the former first wife, as long as they are not involved in any wrongdoing, Sylvester replied. Veronica had not brought in their name-sworn facestones with her to the Ivory Tower, meaning there was no risk of her giving new orders. Sylvester had thus determined that it was best not to treat them any different than the nobles who hadn't given their names. Would it be possible to have Lady Veronica return their names, I asked. It was sure to be an option. I remembered hearing that Ferdinand had tried to give Eckert and the others their names back when entering the temple. Rosamund, do you think she would give up her forever loyal servant so lightly? Ferdinand replied, shooting down my idea in a heartbeat. She would only use the opportunity to give troublesome orders or speak in a code that we would not understand. Not to mention, those name stones are most likely in Mother's hidden room, Sylvester added. We could open the door if she climbs to the distant heights, but in that scenario, her name sworn will already have climbed with her. We don't want more deaths than are needed, and if they swear to serve Ehrenfest, they'll suffice for me. However, there was a sudden glint in his dark green eyes. Those who are name sworn to my sister are another story. Georgine is the first wife of Arensbach, which means those sworn to her will be working for her duchy, not ours. Nobles who can't defy treasonous orders are nothing but dangerous to Ehrenfest. I want to save as many children forced into their faction as I can, but I have no mercy for those who gave their names to Georgine. I recalled Viscount Daldorf saying that his parents had ordered him to give his name. One could imagine there were many who had similarly been forced to give their names to Georgine during their last visit. The faces of the former Veronica faction's children flashed through my mind. Will everyone be okay? Considering that everyone could enter Rosamund's shield during last year's attack at the awards ceremony, we know there are none among the children who are hostile toward the Archducal family, Sylvester continued. There are some we plan to execute for the crime of association, which must be done if we are to keep our authority stable, but I'm trying to save as many lives as possible. I want you all to convince the children to give their names to the Archducal family so they aren't punished alongside their parents. Those of us in the Ehrenfest dormitory all worked hand in hand at the Royal Academy, and I wanted to ensure that the bonds we had formed weren't destroyed by the purge. Wilfred and Charlotte both nodded in response to Sylvester, firm and resolve in their eyes. I will do everything I can to save them, Wilfred said. As will I, Father, Charlotte agreed. I concur that we should have the children at the Royal Academy make this decision for themselves, I said, but what of the children who are not yet students? Florencia smiled. I intend to handle the Winter Playroom. We will take them into our care and give them home in the Castle Knight's dormitory. There we will explain the crimes their parents have committed and the dangers of treason. Then give them the choice to either be executed by association or live in the dormitory with the others. Children too young to attend the Royal Academy couldn't make the face stones necessary to give their names, so there was no need to worry about them being sworn to someone else. Furthermore, as they had already been baptized, they had the magic tools and means necessary to survive as nobles. Florencia explained that if we just looked after them for the few years before they were due to enter the Royal Academy, then they would be able to start apprentice work and earn an income, from which point they could pretty much live independent as proper nobles. Those who had surviving family members could perhaps be taken in by them, but Florencia's plans meant that even those who didn't would be able to get by. That made me feel relieved at first, but then I found myself thinking of the children who wouldn't be included. What about those who have yet to be baptized, I asked. I know we cannot officially recognize them as children of Ehrenfest, but their survival will greatly determine how many nobles we will have in a few years' time. Well, we don't know how many of them exist, so we haven't thought that much about them, Sylvester replied. There may be nobles willing to adopt them with especially high mana, but most won't want anything to do with the children of nobles executed for treason. Not to mention, it'll be hard to raise really young kids without a mother. Newborns weren't officially registered as children until they were baptized. Some, like Conrad, had their magic tools stolen from them in their own homes, and others were never given one at all, so it was impossible to predict how many existed. Sylvester said that the castle had no need for those who wouldn't become nobles, so saving their lives simply wasn't a priority. As it stands, we don't know how much manpower or funding we'll need to raise them, nor whether they'll have enough mana to become nobles in the first place. We should treat those who haven't been baptized as if they were never born. Could I take them to the temple orphanage then? Those without magic tools could survive by giving mana to the divine instruments, and rituals would be much easier with more mana at hand. It's very possible that we'll end up losing blue priests during this purge, depending on how it affects their houses. Blue priests, huh? They hadn't crossed my mind, Sylvester said. That was probably because most nobles didn't view blue priests as fellow members of the nobility. This is my opinion as the High Bishop, but if we lose any more blue priests, the temple will suffer both financially and in terms of mana. At the very least, I would like some children with mana to replace them. By working together, Wilfred, Charlotte, and I were able to make up for the mana shortage that had resulted from our duchy losing so many blue priests and shrine maidens after the Civil War. However, we were soon to lose Ferdinand, and we still needed to find a way to fill the hole that his absence would create. Losing too many blue priests now, of all times, will prove especially problematic. And where will we find the money to support them, Sylvester asked. This is an expensive idea you're putting forward. I don't think you'd want to take so many kids at once. I smiled. We could simply take the funds from the estates of the purged parents. There should not be any problem in using the wealth of the children's houses to support them once they have moved to the temple, no? Well, you're not wrong. I trust that you won't waste the money, so consider it yours, Sylvester said, agreeing to the idea despite not seeming too enthusiastic about it. If we raise them in the orphanage, they will receive a med-noble level education up until their baptisms. Naturally, without the magic tools given to newly born children, they will find it difficult to live as nobles, but I believe we can reward the children who excel with special funding and baptize them into nobility. My suggestion was that they could be baptized without parents, instead having the Archduke or orphanage director as their guardian, then take up residence in the castle dormitory to learn the ways of the nobility. What about those who don't excel? Sylvester asked. As long as they have mana, they can fuel magic tools. They may not be able to live as nobles, but they can devote their mana to the divine instruments within the temple. If you of Ehrenfest were to pay them an amount equivalent to what current blue priests receive, then they should not struggle to get by. There was no need for them to have the same living standards as the current blue priests. We could have them live in the orphanage and dedicate their mana as Besenwast had intended for me to do, and if we were receiving funds from the castle and could provide them with the necessary chefs and carriages, they could be able to perform spring prayer and the harvest festival without issue. And in the potential event of there being enough blue priests that the divine instruments become full, we can have them take on other manner-related tasks, such as teleporting my books or writing magic letters, I continued. My intention is for the lower city merchants to one day start hiring the orphans. If we gave the orphans work involving mana, then it was possible for them to live as commoners. There was no need for the innocent pre-baptism children to die by association, and we didn't need to go through the trouble of ensuring they were raised as nobles. I see. So you do think manners through on occasion, Ferdinand said. I pursed my lips at this very rude remark. It was hard to argue back since I really did tend to be thoughtless. All right, Sylvester said, if you can handle it, then you can look after the pre-baptism children in the orphanage. I much appreciate it, I replied, and it was then that a scholar requested entry into the room. They were allowed in, and silence fell as we all waited to hear what they had to say. Ob Ehrenfest, we have received an urgent letter from Ob Ehrensbach, the scholar said. We have been in the middle of discussing the mass execution of the Duchy's Ehrensbach-leaning nobles, so the uncanny timing of this message made us all fearfully apprehensive. He requests a response at once. Sylvester took the letter with a hard frown and wasted no time reading through it. By the time he was done, his brows were deeply knit, and his complexion had changed entirely. He slowly looked up at Ferdinand. Ob Ehrenfest. If the letter relates to me, may I request your permission to read it? Ferdinand asked. Sylvester paused for a moment and then said, You may. Ferdinand read through it, then let out a deep sigh and started tapping a finger against his temple. My heart stirred with unease. This was how he reacted to troubling news. Ehrensbach was already causing enough problems for us. What else could they possibly be doing? I'm assuming they're moving up the time for him to leave. What else could he possibly be bothering these two? Sylvester squeezed his eyes shut, then gave Ferdinand a look that was completely devoid of emotion. We have 3 days to respond. I want to refuse it myself, but I will leave the decision to you. I am grateful. I will consider this carefully. Ferdinand, what did it say? I asked, grabbing his sleeve once the meeting was over and everyone was moving to leave. Ferdinand remained silent for a moment, scanning our surroundings, and shook his head. I suppose I cannot act as though it does not involve you. He directed me to come to his office, so I made my way there with Hartmut, Riarda, and Cornelius in tow. It seems that Ob Ehrensbach's health is already much worse than expected. He has asked me to depart at once, if possible, such that he can introduce me to his duchy's nobles over the winter and ensure that we get along. He wants you to leave even earlier? We were given so little time to begin with. Considering how long engagement periods usually last, Ehrensbach was already being very selfish and unreasonable in its expectations. Shortening the time frame even further was ridiculous. He made a point of saying that I should come if possible, which gives us room to refuse him if we so wish. That said, I am very much of the opinion that I should leave for Ehrensbach sooner rather than later. Why is that? First, I have already gathered everything necessary to execute Georgine's name-sworn nobles. The details of their living situations, reasons to purge them, and evidence of their crimes. The Ob and those of the Knight's Order can manage the rest without me. The handover in the temple is largely finished as well. My leaving will complicate things somewhat, but not enough to prevent our success. Second, I sense that Georgine aims to distance me from Ehrenfest before we follow up our suspicions of Gerlach. Viscount Stolz's disappearance has already become common knowledge among the nobility, and the kidnapped Grey Priests never reached their destination, so Georgine will have deduced that something unexpected occurred. She would doubtless conclude that Ferdinand was responsible for their attack on the temple, and ending in failure, and she would of course be correct. He had made a show of proving his involvement with both searching Egmont's memories and going to Viscount Stolz's estate. She has been approaching this with great caution from the start, Ferdinand continued. I cannot say how much information her side has acquired, but I expect that their goal was to remove me from the picture since they see me as having destroyed their plots one after another. Little do they know that the credit actually belongs to you. They are probably under the impression that removing Ferdinand from Ehrenfest would make things easy for them, and in truth, I really couldn't blame them. The most I had done was notice that something was amiss. Ferdinand had taken care of the rest. We're dealing with a woman who lays devious multi-layered traps, I said. The last thing I want is for you to be stuck so close to someone like that. Our move to the offensive has always been inevitable. Here in Ehrenfest I can do nothing but defend, meaning that Georgine's onslaught will never cease. But in Ehrensbach I can keep an eye on her, send intelligence, and work to forestall attacks. But that's at your own risk, too. As it stood, we had so few connections in Ehrensbach that there was nothing we could do to fight back. Ferdinand was right when he said that being cautious would mean unending trouble for us. But still, you don't have to leave right away. Can't you wait till spring? By then it will already be too late. Ob Ehrensbach is in danger, and I believe he speaks the truth when he says that he wishes to help me form noble connections in his duchy, which he still can. Ob Ehrensbach could introduce Ferdinand to all sorts of nobles, which was exactly what we needed right now. It was only a matter of time before the Archduke ascended the towering stairway to the distant heights, and when he did, Georgine's power would swell significantly, and the strength of someone like Ferdinand, who was marrying in from another duchy, would wane. Finding friends among the Arensbach nobles was crucial, and the winter when they all gathered to socialize was the best opportunity for this. If the first wife's power becomes too great, then there is a chance that I will not be able to act when it matters most, Ferdinand continued. But the greatest reason for me to spend the winter in Arensbach is that Dinlandi will not be there. She will, as you know, be at the Royal Academy, meaning that I will be able to move freely without her interference. I was so busy babysitting her during her summer visit that I was unable to keep an eye on Georgine's movements, and the same will be true if we're both in Arensbach. I cannot overstate the benefits of my being there in Dinlandi's absence. I take it you've already made up your mind then. Indeed, Ferdinand replied, there is one thing that gives me pause, but if we are able to resolve it, then I shall go. There is no point trying to stop Ferdinand when he had already made up his decision. But at the very least, I could try to help him with his problem. I gazed up at him and said, what's giving you pause? My early departure will force us to call you back for the dedication ritual. I had hoped that you would be able to spend an entire term at the Royal Academy, but this would put all that to ruin. He spoke with a frown, but I didn't see this as much of an issue. It was already a yearly tradition for me to return for the dedication ritual. There was no point in him worrying when everything was already so disastrous. Don't worry, Ferdinand replied, and then realized that Hartmut had said the exact same thing at the exact same time. I'm so used to it anyway, so... I quickly trailed off, realizing that although we had started our responses the same, Hartmut was now saying something entirely different. We intend to detain many men of rich criminals this year, and there are many blue priests who are very enthusiastic about assisting me, he continued. The ritual can be completed without incident if everyone is given face stones and rejuvenation potions, and even if that is not enough, I will acquire the necessary assistance. He then turned to me with a bright smile and declared, Lady Rosamund, you may enjoy your stay at the Royal Academy. I will ensure that the blue priests complete the ritual one way or another. Ferdinand told Hartmut that he would entrust the dedication ritual to him, a sure sign of the trust that had developed between them. Ferdinand definitely wouldn't have entrusted the ritual to me. Rosamund, Ferdinand continued, assuming that you and the temple have no cause to object, I will be going to Arensbach. They have said that accommodations have already been prepared for me, but of course it would be foolish for me to accept those words at face value. My apologies for asking this when you are already so busy, but could you take my luggage to the border gate? Having access to your high beast during the 3 days that remain will serve as much time compared to using carriages. I wish to use the extra leeway to prepare as many potions and magic tools as possible. Understood. I will do what I can, I replied. His mind was made up, and it was only natural that I should do everything in my power to assist him. I appreciated. Now that his departure was decided, Ferdinand sprang into action. He got his estate attendant to write his response in order that clothes and other such daily necessities would be prepared. From there he sent an ordinance to Sylvester, confirming that he was leaving Ehrenfest, but emphasizing that a reply was not to be sent back for 3 days. The ordinance soon returned with a response, after which Ferdinand contacted me with his schedule for moving his luggage and informed me that we needed to go to the temple to prepare. Meanwhile, Hartmut contacted my temple attendants. Rosamund has my permission to accompany you, the ordinance said in Sylvester's voice. Be careful, you're going into enemy territory. Indeed, Ferdinand replied. I could tell from the sardonic look on his face that he thought Sylvester was stating the obvious. A second ordinance then arrived, this time for me. Rosamund, came Sylvester's voice once again. Check with Riarda and Navarre to make sure Ferdinand's luggage isn't missing anything. He needs a woman's perspective, which he's never had. Ferdinand grimaced at that while I pursed my lips. Is he insinuating that I'm not good enough to provide a woman's perspective on my own? I asked. He has a point. So mean! After flatly saying I wasn't capable enough, Ferdinand turned to Riarda behind me. I require your assistance. May I ask you to look over the gifts I intend to bring to Arensbach? I do not have space for many, but I will at least need some. I have with me a thrown-together list for whom that you may use. He then took out the list in question and handed it to her, saying that she could consult his scholars if she needed anything else. You may count on me, Ferdinand, my boy. Though, no, now that you're engaged, I suppose Lord Ferdinand is more appropriate. Remark of wide eyes. I always thought it would be a joyous occasion when I changed how I addressed you, Riarda continued with a melancholic smile. Never did I think that your departure would make me so anxious and concerned. I am also surprised to find that I would rather you continue calling me boy, Ferdinand replied with a wry smile, then turned away from her. I must close off my temple workshop. After that, I will put together the luggage at my estate. Apologies, but I must leave the gift sorting to you. Understood, Lord Ferdinand. Preparing to leave. Do I want to continue this? Do I have time to continue this? Yes, I do. Upon our arrival at the temple, Ferdinand briskly put away his high beast, then began prior walking to his chambers. I called out to him to wait. Ferdinand, you need the time-stopping magic tool. We need to fill it with tasty meals and sweets for you to take to Ahrensbach. Do you truly intend to prepare that much food over the next few days? Obviously. You tend to put off eating when you're busy. I imagine you always cut your meals from the luggage you'll be bringing with you to Ahrensbach, haven't you? Or cut out meals from the luggage. Ferdinand said nothing and merely stared at me through narrowed eyes. I had evidently hit the nail on the head. I will prepare the food, I continued, so simply lend me this time-stopping magic tool. Justice will fetch it later. Satisfied? I watched Ferdinand stride off and start directing his attendants while I put away my own Lahaibist, then asked Fran to go to the orphanage and workshop to summon my attendants. In the meantime, I returned to my High Bishop's chambers with Monica, whereupon I got her and Nicola to help me change. Nicola, I request a feast of meals and snacks, I announced. We need to make enough to fill the time-stopping magic tool before Ferdinand leaves. I intend to ask the Italian restaurant for support, but I expect our kitchen to be working at maximum capacity as well. Understood, Nicola replied, racing to the kitchen without a moment's hesitation. At once I started writing letters to the lower city. By the time I was just about finished, my attendants had gathered in my room. Gil, deliver this to Benno, I said. I wish to know all the progress Zach has made on the bench that Ferdinand ordered. This is for the Gilberta Company. I wish to buy the highest quality hairpin they have. One that Ferdinand can give to Lady Letzia. That will suit hair as golden as Lady Detlinde's, and this is a request from the Offmer Company. Please ask them to assist us in preparing the High Priest's meals and sweets. Understood. I asked Fritz to prepare books and instructional materials to give to Letzia, while I informed Wilma of the very high chance that the orphanage will receive abundance of new children over the winter. In the meantime... Go away!
Is there a tablet in there?
No!
Okay, what?
In the meantime, Rosina was transcribing new songs for me. My intention had been to complete them in secret at the Royal Academy where Ferdinand wasn't around, but there wouldn't be any time for that now. Rosina was focusing on the melody Ferdinand could arrange for them by himself at a later time. The next day, the time-stopping magic tool was brought to the High Bishop's chambers, and we began packing it full of sweets from the Offmer Company and the meals that Hugo and Ella had prepared. Justice poison tested each dish and carefully noted down what it contained. By third bell, the attendants of the High Priest's chambers were coming in and out of my room, transporting boxes from Ferdinand's workshop to mine. A response from Benno arrived a short while later, explaining that the bench had yet to be upholstered with tear-resistant cloth and was thus not complete. It was due to be finished at some point during the winter. I made my prelude to the High Priest's chambers to report this information and provide my usual assistance, but Ferdinand was nowhere to be seen. There were fewer attendants in his room as well, since there was so much to be done before his departure. Eckert, where is Ferdinand? I asked. Lord Ferdinand is cleaning up his workshop, he replied. Thus far he has left only to bring out boxes, but you can call for him if you have something urgent to discuss. You might even want to help him. He then pointed at the magic tool used to speak with those inside the hidden room. I asked for permission to enter so that I could deliver my report, and soon enough Ferdinand poked his head out to listen. Before I could even speak, however, Eckert pushed me through the door. Lord Ferdinand, it seems that Rosemont enthusiastically wishes to assist you in your workshop, he said. What? I was about to complain, but Eckert fixed me with an overwhelmingly imposing smile that stopped me dead in my tracks. Yes, that's right. Please allow me to help. Ferdinand told me to enter, and together we started cleaning up paperwork and such while I delivered my report on the meals I had prepared, the hairpin, the instruction manual, materials, and finally the letter from Benno. In short, I will send the completed bench and new dishes to you in spring. In the meantime, please enjoy all the meals we prepared for you, I said, determined to make him eat healthily. Ferdinand thought for a moment, then shook his head. No, there's no need for that. You can keep the bench. But why? I asked, blinking in surprise. The bench was being made for him because he had shown so much interest in the mattress. I absolutely wanted him to have it in Ahrensbach. Its comfortable cushion will give him somewhere to relax. There was a brief silence before Ferdinand said, I fear that anything I bring with me to Ahrensbach might be taken away. I would rather you keep it than have it end up with someone else. He looked particularly displeased, as though he were remembering a particularly distasteful memory. There was nothing I could say in response. I was in no position to reassure him that nothing like that would happen in Ahrensbach, because you ain't going to be there. Furthermore, will you not need a place to relax once you lose the bench you have been using for support? Ferdinand asked. Oh, god damn it. Yeah, he's mentioning the whole where she remarked at him as a bench because, essentially, she said that he was someone she could lean on, but didn't completely trust to sleep on, essentially, you know? And that was when he got a little annoyed and did who knows what to her. It was like implied he did something. But we couldn't figure out what he did. I already had a bench in my room. It hadn't been lost, and I didn't expect to lose it either. I gazed up at Ferdinand, not understanding what he meant, and in response he let out a weary sigh. You were the one who compared me to a bench. Consider this cushioned variety to be my replacement. He flicked me on the forehead and said, "Don't make me say it, fool." He then picked up a box and started toward the door. Ah, god damn it. I watched him leave, unsure how I was ever meant to guess these things when he was so cryptic and indirect. The more I thought about it, however, the more I realized that he had guided and protected me ever since I first entered the temple. I've always felt so much more comfortable with him there for me to lean on. All my memories since I first joined the temple flashed in my mind. Ferdinand was busy with needing to depart so suddenly, but he was still showing me so much consideration, leaving me things out of nothing but kindness. The thought made my heart ache. Yeah, the guy can be a little bit of a jerk at times, but yeah, he's a good guy. Even during the brief moments when Ferdinand exited the workshop, when he was out of my sight, it felt as though he had disappeared for good. Soon I wouldn't have him protectively standing in front of me anymore. I would need to walk my own path without any guidance, and that realization sent another pang through my chest. Rosemary put these documents together, Ferdinand said, returning as soon as he had placed the box outside. It ain't happening. But just seeing his face again filled me with such an overwhelming relief that tears began to blur my vision. I don't need a replacement bench. So please, wait until spring before you leave. Dang it, I knew this one was gonna be sad too, I just didn't know what part. As much as I wanted to say that, I couldn't. It was too selfish to beaver past my lips. I swallowed the words and wiped my eyes. Rosemary, is something wrong? Ferdinand asked. Ferdinand, since you have so little time before you have to go, shouldn't you remove the restriction on who can enter your workshop? I asked, deciding to be useful instead. Yeah, considering he's not going to be there anymore, there's no need for it to have that restriction since there's probably not going to be anything there. I'm assuming he's taking almost everything out of it. Of his anyway, and leaving like the bare bones, like the bare furniture in it. That would probably be for the best because then Hartman can register it and use it. That's not a bad idea, he replied, then promptly removed the restriction. Since others could now enter his workshop, I was promptly shooed out. There was little need for someone so short and weak. I merely shrugged as Eckert took my place and gleefully began assisting Ferdinand. The luggage was separated into that which was due to be taken to Ahrensbach and that which needed to be taken to my workshop. Ferdinand had already made some progress with clearing out his workshop, but there was still a lot to be done. I will need to clean up my estate as well, and my aim is to have it all finished today, Ferdinand said, causing the attendants from his chambers to widen their eyes. Clearing out this messy workshop they had never ever seen before was going to be bad enough. And then there was the matter of their usual duties. Your attendants can't do this alone, Ferdinand. There's not enough time, I said. Let me call the Grey Priest in the orphanage to help. What point is there in summoning those whom you have no intention of making into attendants? There is no need to take them as attendants. We can reward them another way. Monica, I ask that you go to the orphanage and summon 10 or so Grey Priests who are suited for physical labor. Understood, Monica replied, then turned on her heel and made her way to the orphanage. I returned my attention to Ferdinand, who seemed taken aback and gave a small smile. How about you entrust the boxes you don't want others to touch to Eckert and your attendants while the Grey Priests carry the rest? Ferdinand paused and then said, you truly are skilled at delegating work to others. Of course, there really isn't much I can do on my own. I'm always relying on the help of those more capable than me. You're talented enough to do pretty much everything by yourself, but I think you would do well to make more allies and trust them with things. I racked my brain for a simple method that even Ferdinand could use to make allies. He was skilled in the art of protecting himself, but this defensiveness meant that he seldom allowed new people to get close to him, and vice versa. He tried to resolve situations only with those he already trusted, but by this logic, Raymond was probably the only person from Ahrensbach whom he'd be able to rely on. I didn't want him falling back on Eckert and Justice for everything. Ferdinand, since you are heading to Ahrensbach in the winter when so many nobles are due to come together, why not play the Harpspiel to celebrate your arrival and gain the support of the gathered women, I said. It would be trivial for you and your success is guaranteed, especially if you play a new song. Let's make the most of your voice, looks, and musical talent. Yeah, get him to play the love song! Maybe. Actually, that might get him on Ditlinda's good side, quote unquote, and we really don't need her clinging to him. His Harpspiel concert here in Ehrenfest had won over more or less every woman in attendance, with many being overwhelmed to the point of swooning. Surely it was worth a try in Ahrensbach, too. Oh, by the way, I've had some sweets prepared as well, I continued. You're going to be educating Lady Letzia, so I suggest rewarding her with some whenever she succeeds at something. And remember to praise her. You'll discourage her from growing if you do nothing but focus on her mistakes. Also, speak often with Lady Letzia's retainers about your education process. Don't lord over them with a plan you decided on yourself. And another thing, enough already. Take care of your own responsibilities, Ferdinand said, waving me away like a bothersome fly. The dismissive remark simply wouldn't do. I had already arranged for all the things I wanted Ferdinand to take to Ahrensbach. All there was left to do now was wait. The food was almost ready, and Justice was more or less done with looking over what had arrived from the Offner Company. There was also the items intended for Letzia, a hairpin which I had ordered for the Viel, and some educational material which Fran was currently dealing with. Rosina had already finished transcribing the melody of my new songs, and was now battling to arrange as many of them as she could. And what exactly are these responsibilities, I asked? I came to the temple to help you, didn't I? Go to the bookworm with Fran and retrieve the books I've been keeping there. You're taking the books? They were his, so it made complete sense that he would take them with him, but I was still sad to see them go. I trudged to the bookroom with Fran. The lack of a furnace meant the air was frigid enough to give me goosebumps. I started pointing at the books that belonged to Ferdinand, and one by one, Fran hooked the thick chains securing them to the reading desks. Each one was freighted with a loud clank, and as I watched the pile grow taller and taller, I could feel my heart grow sadder and sadder. Oh, that book. We were now standing in the first bookroom I had ever entered, and the books around us were the first ones I had been permitted to read at my leisure. But the particular book that Fran was currently holding... Is something the matter, Lady Rosemine? Fran asked. I simply recalled that the book in your hands is the first one I ever read after coming here. Indeed, the first book I had read on my first day as an apprentice Blue Shrine Maiden belonged to Ferdinand. Fran looked at the book and then gave a soft smile. Oh yes, I remember it like it was yesterday. You crushed Gil when he came to inform you it was time for lunch and neglected to eat to the point that you collapsed. Zom chuckled. That was when the Gilberta Company came with her tithe. The high priest truly was shocked. He checked on your health with Fran each and every day until you recovered and could return to the temple. Ah, I said, feel free to forget all about that, both of you. Fran and Zom carefully wrapped each of the unchained books in cloth as they continued reminiscing about their time with Ferdinand. Most of the memories they brought up were about him agonizing over my words and actions. Hearing them talking about nothing but my failures was honestly embarrassing. Surely they had some more flattering memories. Lady Rosemine, please wait here with Monica, Fran eventually said. We shall deliver these to the high priest. Instead of stacking the books and carrying several at once, it seemed that Fran and Zom intended to carry them one at a time. Ferdinand had told me to help them, but the books he owned were much too thick and heavy for me to carry. Once they had gone, I glanced around the bookroom, now a questionable name I thought, considering how empty it felt. Mestinora is carved into the shelves, I see, I mused aloud. My eyes wandered to the bookshelves with a door that could only be opened with a high bishop's key, and I noticed that its decorative carvings were more elaborate than those on the surrounding shelves. They displayed a goddess cradling the Gruchite. I've seen these bookshelves so many times over the years, but I guess I never noticed anything but the books. That is very much like you, Lady Rosemine, Monica said with a giggle. The stories that Fran and Zom told a moment ago were very interesting. I didn't know much about you before you saved the orphanage. In case you've yet to notice, there are engravings like these all throughout the temple. It seemed that Monica had long since noticed the carvings on the bookroom shelves. As it turned out, there were various gods hidden all over the temple in various places, although you weren't likely to notice them unless you were one of the people on cleaning and polishing duty. Our apologies for the wait, Lady Rosemine. The high priest has asked for you to prepare your high beast. Now that Fran and Zom had finished moving the books, I needed to transport them to the noble's quarter. I exited the bookroom, returned to my chambers, and then got changed. After which Angelica, who was serving as my guard, came up to me. Lady Rosamond, will you be returning to the castle after delivering the luggage to Lord Ferdinand's estate? I will be staying at the temple today, so you may have Daniel stay at the castle. In that case, Daniel, you may have tomorrow off, I said. I assume you need to prepare for winter socializing. Thank you, my lady. My guards wouldn't be able to prepare for winter socializing if they spent all their time with me in the temple. That was why I was sending Daniel home and staying only with Angelica for the time being. Speaking of which, have you finished your own preparations, Angelica? I asked. Yes, thanks to my strong little sister, I am fully ready. You really should learn to do things yourself. You can't expect Lazetta to keep doing everything for you. To tell the truth, I agree, Angelica replied, placing an embarrassed hand on her cheek. It was the answer she gave whenever she knew that she should do something but didn't have the motivation. I had heard it from her numerous times before, and not once had she actually made an effort to improve afterward. At this rate, Angelica, you're going to be helping when help us when Lazetta gets married. In other words, I won't have to worry for another couple of years. That isn't what I meant. I gave up on convincing Angelica and instead produced my panda bus at the front entrance. Although given how much luggage we needed to transport, it wasn't actually closer in size to a panda truck. Its door flumped open, and the Grey Priest began piling boxes inside. Ferdinand, I made my high beast, I said. Then you may wait in front of a fireplace. Your health may be improved, but it's still cold. You will take sick if not careful. I took a seat in front of the nearby fireplace and watched everyone work. Their pace was smooth due to the number of Grey Priests going in and out, all carrying boxes. I could see Justice directing several people inside who were carrying the time-stopping magic tool. The priest took a short break for lunch, then got straight back to work. It wasn't long before Ferdinand's workshop was completely empty, with even the closets having been cleared of everything except blue robes. Ferdinand closed the door to his hidden room, then placed a hand against it and started channeling mana. The face stone lost its color, eradicating his workshop entirely. My mana has thus been removed, Ferdinand said. You may do this space as you please, Hartmut. I am grateful, Hartmut said, then registered his mana with the door to create his own hidden room. I will now return to my estate, finish my packing there, and subsequently leave for Ahrensbach. I am not likely to return to this temple again. Clean these robes and ensure they are ready to be lent out if necessary. Ferdinand gave his blue robes to an attendant. It was strange to think it, but I would never again see him wearing the priestly attire I was so accustomed to. He put on his noble coat, then attached his blue cape. Do not daydream, Rosamund. The luggage must be brought to my estate. We are leaving. Right. We made our way to the front entrance where Leslie was waiting, and upon our arrival we found that Ferdinand's temple attendants had all gathered to see him off. They were lined up and offering their prayers while his noble retainers began producing their high beasts. High Priest, may the divine protections of the gods grace thee in thy new home. Almighty King and Queen of the endless skies, Almighty Eternal Five who rule the mortal realm. O Goddess of Water Flutrain, O God of Fire Ladenshaft, O Goddess of Water Wind Zaria, O Goddess of Earth Geduld, O God of Life Abigail, we offer you our prayers and gratitude. Ferdinand watched with an indescribable expression as the line of attendants knelt, crossed their arms, and bowed their heads. After a moment, the corners of his lips rose ever so slightly. This is my final order to all of you, who have served me well. Treat Hartmut as you have treated me, and support Rosamund, the High Bishop. Sorry if I sound nasally. It happens when I'm getting emotional. So, yeah. If you hear that voice, and it's... Yeah, you hear that, it's not good. And it's not supposed to be emotional or anything in the book, then it's just me nasally. But if it is, then, yeah. You know why. As you wish. Ferdinand nodded his attendants, then turned to Fran and Zom, who had accompanied us. They were his former attendants, whom he had met sent to work for me. As I understood it, they had been chosen precisely because of their competence, and the fact that Ferdinand trusted them without question. Well, of course! Why would he send someone he didn't trust to look after her? Fran, Zom, I entrust Rosamund to you both. Zom was the first to kneel and bow his head in a show of deference. I am honored, High Priest. Please take good care of yourself. Perhaps he followed, adding in a very emphatic, it was the highest honor to have served you. I imagine so. The guy might be a big taskmaster, but the guy was sure freaking had people who were loyal to him. I see, Ferdinand said, allowing a warm smile to play on his lips. He turned away from the temple, deliberately flourishing his cape. Why did he do that? In the process, and climbed atop his high beast. Then, after looking across his gathered attendants one last time, he flew up into the air. I gripped the wheel of my panda bus and followed after his blue cape. This is really it. This is really it. I cannot talk. This is really it then. The high priest isn't the high priest anymore. After we arrived at Ferdinand's estate, Leslie was unloaded and the luggage was taken to a different rooms, depending on whether it was to be kept here or transported to Ahrensbach. There wasn't much I could do to help them, so I simply waited around and sipped tea with Judith as my guard. I would have liked to spend more time with Ferdinand's back book room, but some of the luggage apparently needed to be moved there, so he told me that I would just get in the way. I'm guessing all the books that they had packed up for him from the book room would probably be going there. It's kind of awkward sipping tea by myself while everyone else is working. I continued to watch Ferdinand give instructions, and it was then that I realized something was off. Ferdinand, what are you going to do about your cape, I asked. Will people not take issue with you wearing Dunkelfelder blue on your way to Ahrensbach? Do you intend to switch to Ehrenfest color before you go? I had forgotten about that, Ferdinand admitted, furrowing his brow and tapping a finger against his temple. I remembered him saying that his new Ehrenfest cape didn't have any protective circles, so I couldn't imagine he would feel safe wearing it to Ahrensbach. He paused, a contemplative look on his face, and then said, Rosamine, make some ink in my workshop. We do not have time for embroidery. Drawing is our only option. It certainly would have been a challenge to embroider complex magic circles when we had so little time to spare. Not to mention writing the circles into sparing ink would make it even harder for people to tell what charms the cape used, which was an added bonus. Wait, you want my ink? I asked. Why? Because if he used his ink, the charms would show up or glow as soon as he touched the cape. So best not to use that. Yeah, because my own will react to my touch and reveal the circles, and you have nothing else to do. Daniel, stay with the Rosamine. Have her make the ink. Daniel swapped places with Judith so that he could instruct me, and from there I was promptly relocated to the workshop in Ferdinand's estate. I don't mind since I have nothing else to do, but this feels strange. Will magic circles written in someone else's ink actually function as charms, I asked? As far as I knew, cape embroidery needed to be done by one's partner or spouse. Ooh, this is going to be awkward. Using ink wouldn't overrule such a fundamental fact. Magic circles that use the mana of another are not entirely dysfunctional, Damien replied. Using mana similar to one's own makes them drastically more effective, though. Oh, right, Ferdinand's cape belongs to someone else, but it clearly still works for him. Not to mention, Lord Ferdinand will only be wearing Ehrenfest colors until his star binding. He will be wearing Ahrensbach colors after that, so perhaps he believes that something simple will suffice for now. I prepared the necessary ingredients for making ink while listening to Daniel. Everything was very easy to find, as Ferdinand stored the same items in the same places in every workshop he owned. You could really feel his personality here. Still, I can't believe Lord Ferdinand is getting married, Daniel groaned while I was stirring the pot. When will it be my turn? He has to freaking bring this up now. He didn't seem to be taking it very well that even the forever bachelor Ferdinand was soon to have a wife. Well, I assume you'll find someone as soon as a lay noble girl using my compression method reaches a capacity similar to yours, no? And given that learning the method requires them to be in our faction, there shouldn't be any problems on that front. Plus, I'm sure Mother will introduce you to someone with enough mana and status. If she does, bear in mind that you won't be able to refuse, but I assume you don't mind at this point. Yes, as I've given up on making it happen on my own. Daniel slumped his shoulders while handing me one necessary ingredient after another. I wanted to help him somehow, but this was out of my hands. Feline was the only person within my sphere of influence. Could you not get engaged to Feline? You're both my retainers, and she's working hard to compress her mana, right? You're both lay nobles, even so there won't be any problems there either. Daniel shook his head with a troubled frown. Please don't drag her into this for my sake. Don't tell her I said this, but I'm pretty sure she has a crush on Roderick. What? Really? I exclaimed. He once gave her a secret note, and they have grown much closer since he became a retainer. She even came to me the other day for advice, saying that the person she's fallen for hasn't been noticing her advances whatsoever. She's talking about you, dude! I'm guessing that person is Roderick. Feline went to Daniel for romantic advice. Very bad move. Of course, I made sure to keep such rude thoughts to myself. Feline has never come to me for romantic advice, so I never realized she had feelings for Roderick. Perhaps I should avoid suggesting her as your marriage partner then, I said, adding the last sprinkle of dust to the pot. The contents splashed, and with that the ink was done. I came out of the workshop with the finished ink in hand and informed Ferdinand that we were ready. In response, he spread out his Air-Infest cape on the table and speedily began drawing magic circles. He was making them large enough that precision wouldn't be much of an issue, but wow, his hand was moving at such phenomenal speed and without hesitation. There is not much time before the star-binding ceremony concludes. This should do, he said, giving a satisfied nod. As he set down the pen, he was going to be given a new Ahrensbach cape after the ceremony, which would have on it magic circles embroidered by his bride during their romantic engagement period. I was genuinely worried about whether Detlinde's work would meet Ferdinand's extremely high standards, though at the same time, I was relieved not to be in her shoes. Thank goodness I'm not the one married to. Oh boy! I know something you don't know. I really shouldn't have said that. I might cut that out. I don't know. I'll try to cut that out. How far was that in the video so I can kind of check it? 49:15. Okay. It was one thing to draw with ink, but I didn't want anything to do with embroidering such complex circles. You should return your other cape now that you have a new one, I said to Ferdinand. It clearly meant a lot to Highshits, who had gambled the valuable ingredients we had ended up using in my Jareve for a chance to reclaim it. Ferdinand wasn't going to have any use for it, so it seemed only natural that he should give it back. I cannot bring anything important with me to Ahrensbach while I am still so unaware of the circumstances there. It would be best for you to either return it to Highshits through a Dunkelfelger Archduke candidate at the Royal Academy, or hold on to it until the introductory tournament so that I can deliver it myself. Understood, I replied. I'm going to hold on to it then. I'm sure that you would rather you give it back personally. So be it. Ferdinand got Justice to help him remove his cape, then cleansed it with washing before folding it and handing it to Feline. Feline, I said, please inform Riarda that I would like the cape added to my luggage for when I return to the Royal Academy. As you wish. Ferdinand was busy until the day he needed to leave. I spent that time in the castle, but long stretches passed without us seeing each other. I took extra care to ensure that I wouldn't be ill on the day of his departure. In the meantime, I was working through the orphanage's budget, making charms to give to Eckert and Justice, and preparing for my return to the Royal Academy. I also met with Wilfred, Charlotte, and Melkor in Florencia's office, where we discussed the children of the former Veronica faction. I'll get to work on everything, and I'll see everybody in the next one.